Donald Trump has delivered a major salvo in his trade war, this time aimed squarely at Canada.
Canada's been a very difficult country to deal with over the years.
The government of Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach,
America almost never fights with Canada in public because the cost is usually bigger than the headline. That is why what we are watching right now feels so dangerous and so unusual. Donald Trump is not just arguing with our closest neighbor. He is pulling at the economic wiring that quietly holds North America together. Those wires are not abstract ideas or diplomatic slogans. They are real supply chains. They are the parts inside cars, the lumber inside homes, the fuel, food, and materials that move back and forth across the border every single day without anyone noticing. Or at least they used to. Trump has been back in the White House less than a year, and he is already looking for a confrontation that proves dominance. He chose Canada. He chose the one country the United States has treated as automatic for generations. A partner that buys more American goods than China, Japan, and the United Kingdom combined. A partner whose economy is so deeply integrated with the U.S. that some products cross the border multiple times before they are finished. And he is treating that partner not as an ally, but as a problem to be disciplined. The mistake is assuming Canada would respond emotionally or fold quickly. Canada did not send a showman into this fight. It sent Mark Carney, a man shaped by crises but uninterested in spectacle. A central banker who spent his career watching how panic spreads and how markets punish recklessness. Carney does not fight with insults or threats. He fights with credibility. And credibility is the one thing tariffs cannot manufacture. This is not a normal trade dispute. It is the slow destabilization of the most stable economic relationship on Earth. At the center of the conflict is the threat of tariffs. Trump and his team have floated numbers large enough to scare every boardroom that depends on cross-border trade. 25% is not a negotiating nudge. It is a shock. It freezes decisions. It forces companies to stop hiring. It turns expansion into risk management. The real damage of tariffs does not arrive on day one. It arrives quietly as hesitation spreads through the system. Tariffs destroy planning. A car company cannot redesign a supply chain overnight. A parts supplier cannot suddenly find a new market without losing money. A builder cannot absorb higher lumber prices without passing them on. A factory cannot commit to new shifts if costs might spike next month. When policy becomes unpredictable, companies do not fail immediately. They pause. And when enough companies pause, growth disappears. Trump appears to believe fear is leverage. He believes making the border feel unstable will force Canada to concede. But Canada is not a marginal market. It is the #1 export destination for more than 30 U.S. states. Hitting Canada hits those states directly. It hits workers who do not care about political theater. They care about hours, wages, and whether the plant stays open. Look at Michigan and the auto industry. Parts move back and forth across the border as if it barely exists. When tariff threats rise, orders slow. Production schedules wobble. Hiring freezes appear. Not out of spite, but out of survival. The same pattern plays out in agriculture, construction, and energy. Even the rumor of tariffs raises prices because sellers price in uncertainty. Consumers pay more. The blame falls everywhere, except where the decision started. Border towns feel it even faster. Canadian shoppers quietly change habits. A trip becomes a stay-at-home weekend. A vacation goes elsewhere. Restaurants, hotels, and retail shops feel the loss before anyone writes a report about it. This is how economic damage actually spreads. Quietly, locally, human by human. Washington keeps making the same assumption, that Canada will absorb this because it needs the U.S. market. Canada does need it, but need does not equal submission. Need can also produce adaptation, and Canada has already begun adapting. Carney has been clear. He will not tear up agreements just to satisfy a demand for dominance. He will not accept a system where rules apply only when Washington approves. Because once that happens, the relationship stops being trade and becomes coercion. Businesses cannot function under coercion. They need rules that hold even when politics changes. So Canada has started building options. That word options is what alarms the White House. Options mean Canada can reduce dependence over time. Not overnight, not completely, but enough to change leverage. And once leverage shifts, the dynamic changes permanently. Trump made the situation worse with talk about Canada becoming the 51st state. Whether he meant it seriously or not does not matter. In diplomacy, language is signal. And Canada heard the signal. It sounded like disrespect. It sounded like ownership. It sounded like a warning that this relationship might no longer be treated as equal. Trade is not built only on price. It is built on trust. For decades, trust with Canada was so strong it became invisible. The border felt boring. Boring was the advantage. Boring meant factories could plan. Boring meant investment made sense. Boring meant prices stayed stable. Trump is replacing boring with drama, and drama carries a cost that compounds over time. There is also a legal fault line forming beneath this conflict. Tariffs are power. Who controls that power matters. When presidents stretch emergency authorities to impose tariffs, they are not just fighting other countries. They are challenging the balance of government itself. Businesses watch this closely. Investors watch it even closer. If one person can rewrite trade rules at will, then rules become moods. And markets do not trust moods. This is how a country loses its reputation without a single dramatic collapse. Companies continue operating, but they invest less. They build the next factory somewhere safer. They expand in places where policy is predictable. Wages stagnate because growth slows. The economy does not crash. It simply underperforms year after year. Canada faces hard choices too. It cannot replace the U.S. market easily, but it cannot accept permanent vulnerability either. So it will likely pursue two strategies at once. Preserve what still works with the United States while accelerating alternatives everywhere else. And once those alternatives take hold, they do not disappear when politics cool down. Consumers adapt fast, businesses adapt slower, but when businesses adapt, the change sticks. Contracts get rewritten, routes change, relationships form. Even if the storm passes, the new system remains. That is how short political fights create long economic consequences. This is why the current moment matters. It is not about winning a news cycle. It is about whether the United States wants to remain the default partner or become just another option. If Trump wants better trade terms, negotiation is possible. Countries renegotiate all the time, but negotiation requires mutual respect and stable rules. Threats might force a concession today, but they destroy trust tomorrow. Trust is more valuable than any short-term win. Carney understands this. Markets reward stability. If Canada looks calm while Washington looks volatile, capital will drift north. Not out of ideology, out of math. Investors chase predictability. The irony is that a tariff war meant to demonstrate strength can end up teaching partners how to live without you. Once they learn, they do not forget. American industry understands this. A fight with Canada is not like a fight with a distant rival. It is economic self-harm. It raises domestic prices. It endangers domestic jobs. It forces companies to hedge against their own government. And the signal does not stop at the border. If the United States is willing to weaponize trade against Canada, every other ally takes note. They begin planning alternatives, not because they want conflict, but because they want insurance. This is how leadership erodes, not through defeat, through repeated decisions that encourage the world to root around you. There are only a few ways this ends. De-escalation, where cooler heads prevail and predictability returns, or escalation, where tariffs harden, retaliation follows, and adaptation accelerates. The latter path does not cause a sudden crash. It causes a permanent shift. Watch the real indicators: shipping volumes, hiring decisions, factory locations, investment flows. Those numbers will tell you whether this crisis fades or reshapes the continent. A bridge can survive storms, but it cannot survive being attacked by the people standing on it. Canada is not an obstacle. It is a pillar, and when pillars crack, everything above them becomes unstable.